Hey everyone, Amiya here from Resonance Astrology, and I'm joined today by Neha, and we are gonna talk about anxiety because I think anxiety with astrology and eventually when you tap more deeply into it is so real. Like it's such a struggle, and so much so that I wanted to dedicate an entire episode to this. And this is part of a series that I'm calling Beyond the Birth Chart because it really is something that is beyond the birth chart, even though it involves your birth chart. And so this is what we're going to talk about today. And now I'm going to let her introduce herself. So, hi.
Hi, I'm so grateful to be here. My name is Neha, and I am a professional astrologer. I do primarily natal and electional astrology, and my style is traditionally rooted with a modern flair. My family's from Nepal, so I grew up around Jyotish or Vedic astrology. And basically, I got into astrology when a Chakri or like a Nepali shaman medicine person stayed with us. And he was just divining. And somehow that led me to like Google moon sign calculator. I learned I was a Scorpio moon, and the rest was history. I really like to help people thrive and find meaning in their life and build a relationship with time through astrology. And I like to take complicated concepts and make them applicable to real life. So that's a little bit about me and my practice.
I think, yeah, making complicated concepts into something applicable to life. I think that's what we're going to try to attempt to do today.
Yes.
Because I think the anxiety that people tend to have usually comes from that issue where things just seem like very like out there and it's really what like my philosophy on this chart and this is kind of like an extension from the Meet the Planet series is that I always like to tell people that the planets aren't in the sky, rolling their hands and trying to like diminish or curse your life or something. Their force is up there and you can get into relationship with them. That doesn't necessarily mean that you can completely change the archetypal experience that you're going through, but I would say it's the same thing when, let's just bring the example of when maybe you're in therapy and you're going through a depression. It's like doing because sometimes what therapists do is make you like sit in the chair and have a relationship with depression. So it's not like I'm a Mia and I'm depressed. It's like I'm a Mia and I have a depression and I'm gonna start building a relationship to that. And I
Yeah.
think that's like the gist of all of that. And I'm wondering what is coming up for you right now as I'm speaking about that.
I love that. I love therapy. My therapist took the time off this summer. Love that for her, but can't wait, can't wait to see her again in the fall. Um, I think of astrology as like a clock. Sometimes what time it is might give us some anxiety, right? It's like, oh, you wake up like before your alarm and you're like, "Ah, I can't go back to sleep. I have to get up no matter what, and it's just what time is it right now, and what are the planets doing? Is like the different hands on the clock, right? It's not like Saturn literally wants to beat your ass. It's that Saturn's like, it's the time for the heavier things in life. It's the time to take more responsibility or think about the structures or take time to intentionally grieve. I like tarot as well, and I think of the Five of Cups card. And like a lot of people interpret that, in so many different ways, but one of them is like, don't cry over spilled milk or you're just like upset about something, etc. And then me as a Scorpio moon, I'm like, sometimes it's when you leave the city, you cross the bridge and you go to a graveyard or somewhere to mourn and you pour out some cups for a loved one intentionally before you pick up your two cups and go back into the city. Because we do need time for the Venus, the Jupiter, the good things in life, as well as Saturn and Mars and some of the heavier themes that we experience in life, right? Um, there's the wholeness to the human experience, and that's not always easy, and there can be a lot of anxiety around it, especially when you see challenging things in the sky. But I think the beauty of knowing astrology is like the awareness of it. Um, which can also lead to anxiety, but we're going to talk more about that.
Yes, I think we just live in a very challenge-averse society for some reason
Yeah.
that is afraid of intensity and intense experiences, and yet everybody yaps about I want to live a full life. And I'm like, okay, then it's about experiencing the whole spectrum. And it's really for me tapping into this greater depths of pain and grief and like these things that I would say are more unpleasant, equally also expands us into the other direction of also
Totally.
simultaneously experiencing, well, more pleasure in our lives and these other experiences. And so for me, I mean, it's, I feel like I could go on a whole soapbox opera with like modern astrology and how it's like rooted in mostly sensationalism and it's I think it's just a critique on society in general because it's not just happening in the astrology community, it's like really everywhere. Like people just love these quick fix things and oh my gosh, tell me exactly what to do. And there's a lot of people, a lot of astrologers, and I'm not like trying to call out anyone with this, but just making these clickbaity type of contents, literally maybe even right now, because right now we're in a phase where the outer planets are starting to communicate with one another. And so it's like, ooh, let's make content about how the world is gonna change like never before, you know? And I'm like, okay, but where is the responsibility of that? Because people are gonna take that in. And that thing, that is what I think can create anxiety because you're like, either I'm
Yeah.
gonna miss out on some this magical transit. I think we had it with the a few months ago with that like Jupiter Venus Cazimian Cancer, right? Where it was
Yes.
like, oh, if you don't do something on that day, you're gonna miss out on like the most glorious, beautiful thing
Yeah.
ever. And then, the other way around, if there's a quote unquote harsh transit, yeah, it's the opposite.
Oh my
So
gosh. I have so many thoughts on that as an electional astrologer. I'll clock back into that. However, you're so right with like the sensationalizing. I remember when I came onto the scene initially as an astrologer, and I was just like witnessing like what are the content people are making so I could like make some of my own. I was like, I was like, there's no way that this full moon every single month is life changing. That would be so exhausting and tiring. And even thinking about some of these bigger transits or like these changes happening on a larger scale, it's like we as people are co-creating that, right? We're not
Mhm.
just like, oh, yeah, things just changed. It's like, yeah, sometimes that does happen. Um, but like, change happens by people doing things, right? And I also think like a part of knowing astrology is like letting the planets change you or create change through you. Like I think about the power of prayer or like spiritual practices or having an altar, or maybe somatics, right? Anything that helps you connect deeper to yourself and something bigger than you. It's not always that the prayer will automatically change what's going on. It's that the prayer can change you, and that changes how you show up. And that
Mm.
changes your circumstances or how you navigate your circumstances a lot of the time. And I do think prayer has the power to change things that are out of our control. But at some point, you can, like, the antidote to anxiety is do what is within your control, right? It's like you cannot take responsibility for those things outside of your control. However, you can take your agency back and take your power back by being like, what can I rest? What's an action I can take? Like I think about in psychology, like within dialectical behavior therapy or DBT, it's like there's this thing called halt, where it's like, are you freaking out? Are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? One of those, take care of that need before you like continue on the freak out, right? And oftentimes meeting that need will help you, right? Resource you to navigate your circumstances. And it's not always that simple, and sometimes it is. Yeah, so
Yeah, because I mean, essentially, anxiety is really the fear of experiencing the present moment fully. And I do think with Saturn and Neptune currently being in Aries, that's very prominent and also challenging that, or like challenging us to actually have the courage to like be in the present moment and experience these sensations that are coming up, which I know very well. Like I struggled with crippling anxiety for like a long time, so I'm not like trying to be like above this. Like I know this feeling extremely well.
Same.
And really the root of this, which I'm realizing over the past few years, is like the fear of experiencing the intensity of the present moment, really, and of life moving through you. Like there's a kind of like a fear of life moving through you, I would say. And and if you don't let life move through you, then you become stagnant. And I feel like that's actually even worse, even though in the moment it doesn't feel like that. You're like grasping, you're like, no. But it is in the long run, it's actually worse. But with that, with this video, I don't think we want to shame anyone for feeling anxiety at all
Not
because
at
it's a
all.
very real thing. But I think we want to just like kind of offer insight and solution. So. Yeah, like where do you think this, I mean, we, we kind of like talked about it already, but I feel like we can deepen it even a bit more and just talking like what happens? Like why do people even get anxiety from astrology? Something that is so
Yeah.
woo-woo. No, just kidding.
Right. Something that has nothing to do with real life at all. I mean, um, I think that because astrology is about life, and a lot, and life can give us anxiety. And I feel like a lot of people who are astro curious are astrologers, are astrology students. You come to this practice for answers, right? You want to understand something about yourself, something about the people in your life. When will I find my partner? When will I achieve success, right? Like being a consulting astrologer, it's like I have some repeat clients who come to me for fun. They're like, "Hey, that does happen." However, most clients come to me because they have some real ass questions about their life, right? And so there's already that percolating if you're into astrology, likely at some level. And I think that when we see like the symbols of astrology, right? They're not all hunky-dory. I like to say like life is not all rainbows and sunshine, so why would astrology be all rainbows and sunshines, right? There are planets that symbolize things like grief and death and anxiety and heaviness and depression. Shout out to you, Saturn. And there are also planets that represent violence and shocking events and destabilizing and then depending on how your chart is configured, Jupiter is a benefic, generally speaking. However, Jupiter for someone specific might rule your eighth house. It might be a symbol of anxiety and heaviness and grief, etc., right? There's so much nuance to it. And so as we're like looking into astrology and seeing the answers, or maybe we consult with someone, I think part of the anxiety is the sensationalism. And it's like I realize people need to get views to make money or whatever, but like I have such conflicting feelings around that, but that's a side note. But I feel like uh yeah, that's part of my answer, right? Is like we're looking for answers and sometimes the symbols don't always give us. And it's gonna be sunshine and rainbows, sweetie, and you're just gonna be so happy, and there's gonna be no struggle at all. And then also there's the anxiety of, oh, I'm in a good period right now. I should be making the use of it. I should be
Mm-hmm.
doing more with it. Oh my God, it's gonna end on this day. And that pressure to do it all. Like I really wanted to get my website up during the Venus-Jupiter conjunction in Cancer, but that didn't happen, right? There were so many other things happening in my life, and I was just like, I have to be present with the goodness that is here with me, the Venus-Jupiter conjunction that's already happening, instead of trying to force a Jupiter-Venus conjunction that is not happening, right? And it's okay that I miss this once in a 12-year opportunity in my 10th house. That's okay because that's not what was meant to be. I can talk more about electional astrology in a bit. I want to give you a moment to share your thoughts as well. But yeah, I think people get a lot of anxiety around electional, and I have thoughts around it, I promise.
Oh yeah. Okay, let me share a bit of an anecdote through my life
Yes.
story, because I think most people get into astrology for, I would say, selfish reasons. And with that, again, I'm not I'm not trying to point fingers, but that's just real. Like you get into astrology because you want to know about yourself. And then usually you're like, okay, like I relate to this. I see patterns, I see things. Does it apply to other people? And it gets like very interesting. And that's like the part where it's still kind of funny, and maybe you get into like astrology memes and you're like, oh yeah, look at you. You're such a moon in Aquarius. Um, and then, life happens. And then you're like, okay. Um, and then, eventually you're like, okay, do I have free will? What is the realm of fate and fortune? And I feel like that's the part where the anxiety like starts coming up. And when
That's so
you
real.
literally are at the point, I think, in the astrology journey where you're like just gaining knowledge and knowledge and knowledge, and then you get into the analysis paralysis where you're like overwhelmed because you're like, okay, well then if everything is predictable, then does it matter if I lift my finger or not? I mean, me personally, I got sent into like a deep depression hole when I was in that phase. Which is why I also like to tell people that I think astrology is not really for the faint-hearted. Like, honestly, like being an astrologer, you kind of need to be able to dabble in these like realms of fate and fortune, which are heavy. Like, grappling with that is heavy stuff. Um,
Yeah.
and it's really something that every astrologer eventually goes to, or somebody that's also just very enthusiastic about astrology. And I think that's like the phase where what helped me really is to like switch from what are the planets doing to me to like what can I do for the planets? Bless you. Like
Thank
what
you.
can I do for the planets? And it's like when I made that switch from thinking, oh, this is not just something like happening to me, I can actually relate to that. That's when my anxiety got severely reduced, because when I was in that moment, and it was like it was like the closing Saturn square. And it was like just a really, really extremely heavy period. And I was so like distraught and disillusioned. And I was like, oh, and I was projecting so much onto my Saturn return that I'm having right now, with that it's going to be even worse. And like I was going through a period of like sickness in my mind and in my body. And I was like, oh, if it's that bad now, then my Saturn return like is going to be horrible. Like I'm going to end up extremely sick, and Neptune is going to be there. I'm going to get a mysterious illness that nobody's going to have a cure for. And now that I'm in it, I actually feel like I'm the healthiest I have been in a long time. And I'm just learning to be extremely responsible with my routines and how I'm setting up my day. And it's none of what I projected, like 6 years ago. So that's a bit of a story anecdote, I think, that maybe some
Yeah.
people can relate to, or if you're finding yourself in such a phase, there is a way out of this.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, that's so relatable. I love what you said about fate and fortune. Yeah, I mean, when you get into some of those timing techniques, it is,
Zodiacal
it
releasing.
is, oh my gosh, you're like, can I do anything actually? And it's like, or am I just living out this story? I got into astrology. Well, I started studying it when I was a younger teenager, and then when I went to university, I experienced, so I have Mars in the ninth in a day chart, and going to university was really difficult for me. I experienced a lot of traumatic events, one of which was my friend and my roommate Juliet passing. And I remember then, I don't know if I don't think I did it immediately, but I looked back at this event and transits and other timing techniques and just like surface level, like I think Uranus and the North Node, or Uranus, the South Node, were both in Aries and they were on top of my Saturn. And my Saturn's my seventh house. So it's like literally shockingly,
Mm,
surprisingly losing a person in my life and that being really difficult and really heavy. And I was just like, damn, looking back at it, I was like, in one way, it helped me have just acceptance for like that was the moment. But then, then it was like projecting into the future. Like when I
mm,
saw then, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have my Saturn return with Neptune there.
mm.
Is like, is something bad gonna happen to my partner? Is something bad gonna happen to someone in my life? I remember having a consultation with another astrologer and just being like an anxious person, and they were like, maybe your partner is just feeling depressed. Maybe you just have to be there for them at that time. And I was like, oh, yeah, maybe. Right. And now that we're in it, it's actually been relatively positive. There have been definitely some, you know, real life things that have happened and things that we're working through. And at the same time, they weren't these catastrophizing moments
Yeah.
that I had thought of when I was projecting into the future. I think that, like, when we do look to astrology for the heavy moments in our life and for me, it was helpful to like process those memories and be like,
Mhm.
that's just what the clock was saying at that time, right? And there was, there are things bigger than you. And so for me, like for grief, that's what helped me process that. And then also living my life and being like, what is actually going on right now? I love what you said about your health piece and feeling like the healthiest you've ever been. That's really cool. I'm glad you're feeling better because I was going through Saturn and Pisces kicked my ass. And like South Node was in the first at the same time. And I was just like, wow, I had no capacity. And I was like, now every time I get a little bit sick, I'm like, but it's a lot of the
Yeah.
anxiety.
It is. Well, it's that again, right? Like it's, oh, I'm anxious of experience floating in through my system and letting it move through me. I, something that I also like to tell to people is that astrology is descriptive rather than prescriptive. So even though like there is prediction astrology and it's real and there's timing techniques like zodiacal releasing and everything, it is still what we do essentially, really, when we even do prediction is there's an archetypal field that was observed for long, 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 long time, and people like written down in books and everything, these archetypes of what Venus symbolizes, and Mars symbolizes. And so, because we have that information, we can kind of predict the archetypal field of something, which is why people were able to predict COVID. But they were never able to predict that it was named COVID. You know what I mean? Like it was, they were able to predict that there would be an archetypal field that happened during a time where there were pandemics involved, where people were very isolated, and so that was kind of what was predicted, but they couldn't predict like the actual name of it. And so for me, when I say that, I mean really it's like we can literally take Mercury retrograde right now for an example. I always like to say, Mercury retrograde isn't causing your ex to reach back out to you. It's describing it. It's describing that
Um,
experience for you just as much as it's describing somebody else's experience of their train being late and not necessarily their ex reaching back out to them. So there's a lot of ways that these archetypes show up in our lives and describe a circumstance, which can be so different, and I'd rather, at least my life became a lot more sexy when I started to meet it with curiosity rather than this, yeah, projections around, oh, like this is gonna be the worst thing or the best thing. Like I have my ideas, but now I feel like I'm so chill that I'm just like, okay, well, let's see what happens. Like I'm curious enough to find out. And I'm kind of just like living my life, and then things happen and I'm like, oh, Or like that's how, Uranus, Neptune right now are showing up in my life. Like, oh, I see them. Like I see the archetypal experience, and that really, yeah, kind of moved the anxiety away a lot for me.
Right. I love curiosity. I love it.
Our
I think
Gemini placements love
curiosity,
it.
right? I think it's the antidote to a lot of the it's never fun to have a conversation with someone who's just talking about themselves or never asking a question,
Yeah.
right? It's like, how do we go deeper? How do we like understand one another more? And it's a lot through curiosity, asking questions. And like, I love what you said about like the experience, like just experiencing life, right? Like, what is present? Like, oh, when this transit happened before, what was going on in my life? Kira Ryberg in her Patron has this article about like, challenging transits. And one of the things she names is like sometimes the challenging transit is just the fear of the challenging transit, right? And
That's so true.
like it's describing your anxiety and like
Yeah.
the intensity of the contemplation of that heaviness. And I also think that the concept of like remediation or even just giving an outlet to some of the challenges in your life, like an astrologer named Sita, she goes by Astro by Sita. I got like a Saturn return reading from her, and she was like, maybe, gift your partner a red clock, or get yourself a red shoe.
Oh, that's
And
so
I
good.
was like, ooh, I might get myself, I haven't gotten myself a red shoe yet. Need to find my soulmate shoe, but I did buy my partner a little red clock to go in his room. Um, I feel like they're just giving a archetype or a placement, just a way to express itself. I remember
Hmm.
having a conversation with a friend who had a really challenging family life growing up. And I think that like Mars was doing things in the fourth house. And then like when as an adult they were thinking about like, wow, I'm having a really peaceful living situation right now. Like that's really interesting. And then she was like, wow, my roommate is an Aries. Like, Mars has an outlet to express themselves, It's like, and they're doing Aries things, they're doing Mars-esque things, and life has an outlet for that now. And I think there's different practices you can take to support your placements. And to develop them in ways that that they can grow and nurture. That doesn't mean you can control everything, and at the same time, again, you can do what you can do.
Yeah. We are lived by powers we pretend to understand. I always have that in front of me, just
Mm,
to keep myself humbled,
yeah,
before the gods, because even my interpretation
yeah,
is limited. Like I know a lot,
right.
but it's still limited, and I'm wondering actually, because if I go on Reddit or even sometimes in real life, I think one of the biggest questions that people sometimes come to me is like, am I cursed? Like, is it
Mm,
cursed that I have this placement? Is this just gonna be like that forever? Like, I never had a relationship. Am I just gonna be alone forever, or is this always going to be like that? Am I just not the chosen one? I don't know. I think that is like a big, big, big astrology question. Definitely goes down into
yeah.
that realm. And so I wonder what you like tell people if they come to you and ask you these types of questions.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a very relational person, so like the exact thing I say changes. However, I've contemplated this for myself as well because I have three fallen placements. And if you read what some of the ancients say about fallen placements, I'm like, oh, okay, am I just
Balance.
gonna be a shame on my family and just, just the worst? Um, and I have a Leo sun in the 11th, and for a while I was like tapping it. I was like, "Are you broken? Are you there? I'm not feeling you." So these are real questions that I've contemplated, and like my short answer is I do think there can be such thing as curses and whatever, and
Okay,
I
yeah.
also think no. No, you're not cursed. You're not doomed forever. I really don't think so. I think that, like, I don't have an eloquent answer. Hold on, let me contemplate. Can we edit this part out? I'm like, I don't want to be like, ooh, actually, this is real. Um, my,
But I get what you mean. Like I think like obviously the realm of like curses exists, and it would
yes,
also be like descriptive in your chart, maybe like there's an eighth
right.
house transit going on, so that's like a very real, but I don't think like by essence you are cursed or your birth chart is cursed because it's just a momentary snapshot of the sky, really. So
I don't
that's
think you're doomed
yeah.
forever. Like, if you know, like, I can't have that point of view. Like, I have Jupiter in Capricorn in Jupiter in its own bounds. And it's just like I've been in really low places. I've also sat in really low places with other people. And if I have the view that like we're cursed and there's nothing we can do about it, like I think about the diagnosis of depression, right? And what is depression? It's like when we feel so hopeless that like nothing that we can do can change our circumstances or how we feel. Um, and to me, like knowing some levels of psychology and like being educated in like CBT, it's just like if we truly believe that, we feed that.
Yeah.
And so I think the power of something like, say, ritual or like a spiritual practice, say, if you do feel like there's been an experience of a curse or someone casting the evil eye, there are things that you can do, like protective, or, you can, you can reclaim your power in ways and work to lift that curse, so to speak, you know? Um, but that's just what I believe. Like, and I think what I tell clients really depends on who they are and
Mm.
like how we're having our conversation, and like how I can kind of put the agency back into their hands. Like, I like to look at the lot of spirit, and that is. The lot of the sun. If lot of fortune, I think Kira Ryberg said this, if lot of fortune is the cards that were dealt in life, lot of spirit is how we play those cards. And I think that looking at the placements in our chart that help us remember our power, remember our agency, remember that there are good things in life, that there are blessings and boons here, even in the midst of grief and pain and hardship, that we can navigate circumstances to the best of our ability. I remember when I was extremely depressed and circumstances were really hard. I would go get Justin's peanut butter cups and just like meditatively and very slowly eat that. And I would practice gratitude, not in this like invalidating the hard things I
Hmm.
had, but I
Hmm.
was like, I need to also see the good things in my life. Like the good can coexist with the bad, right? And that I think rewired my brain in a lot of ways. And I then just think of like witnessing people surviving genocide, in Palestine, like the faith that they have is like if they can have faith in those circumstances that one day that their people will be liberated and free, and they can navigate this. It's like, it's like even in the most dire of circumstances, Jupiter is still there,
Jupiter is indeed there.
Yeah, like you can't have the Saturn without the Jupiter. And yeah, so I don't know if that fully answers the question, but I'm never the like sugarcoating person fully, or like the person who's like, if you just think your way out of this and just challenge your limiting beliefs, you can just da da da. It's like that can actually that traumatized me actually,
Yeah. Yeah,
in different
no.
chapters
Yeah.
of my life. But it was more like, how can I reclaim my agency? How can I engage with what is good, even if it's small, then that can grow.
Yeah, that makes sense. And as you said, like we definitely don't want to go down the path of like spiritually bypassing because that's like
No.
the other route of this, where I think also a lot of astrology people can come from where you're like, oh, you just like you need to focus on um or not to be too harsh with evolutionary astrology, but I feel like sometimes that's a bit of a critique I have for evolutionary astrology, where everything feels like, oh, it's just for your higher evolution. When for me, learning ancient Hellenistic astrology at that time actually was the helpful route because I was like, wow,
Yeah.
finally something that is concrete and that just like gives me a no bullshit answer and is like, okay, yeah, like this experience kind of sucks. And that was so helpful for me
Yes.
to just have that kind of confirmed through astrology. And I think that's the point, really, is that astrology gives you a framework for your life, for whatever you're going through. And you can kind of explain it and tap into that. And it's not about losing agency at all. It's actually kind of reclaiming it because you can start relating to it, right? Like I'm kind of really always bringing it back to relation because for me it really is a relation. And when I have challenging aspects in my chart as well. Like I have the, oh so bad Venus Saturn square, which I think balance is like that's the worst thing you can have in a chart. Uh, so
Thanks, Balance.
I know, right?
I
Saturn
do
was
love
like
him, but
Balance was like a OG Saturn hater. We're talking
oh,
about Deus
facts.
Valens, by the way.
Yes.
But in any case, it's like, it's definitely something that I'm like, I look back on my life and even now on my life, and I'm like, that is something that I constantly find myself in and where I'm like, it is challenging. Like my relationships are fucking challenging. They were never like easy flowing. There was never like I see other people and it seemingly is like, wow, it just kind of like happens for them. And I just kind of always go into that story. And I had a conversation yesterday kind of about the same thing with someone I did a reading for. And she was also like asking me, like, is just like, is that pattern? Is that just like kind of who I am? And I was like, in a way, yes, because the chart is your essence. But for me, it's really a bit like a spiral, you know? It's like you go through these stories again and again, and there is these like archetypal field, your hologram, but you meet it differently, like from a different layer, from a deeper layer. And you get to relate to it. Because like as soon as you start relating to it, then it's like, okay, I got back into my autonomy. This is not just something where I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, I'm cursed because of this. Like I'm never gonna find love because have a Venus Saturn square or whatever. And even if, there's other things in the chart. Like I definitely don't think that you got your desires implanted and your chart is just like, no, sorry, you can't have these things. Like you wouldn't
Right.
have them inside your soul if it was denied, something that would be denied in your life.
Agreed.
That is my belief, as someone again that also has challenging aspects in my chart. Um, yes, and I mean squares are always about overcoming. I very much am a proponent of squares. I think they're underrated. And I have actually found a lot of people that have very like benefic and good charts and all just like trines and sextiles to actually be people that kind of, well, not to critique anyone, but just be a bit like lazy because there aren't really challenges happening in their life. There's no like growth. They're not confronted with so many things. So I'm all for
Mars is the
squares.
principle of action, right? And squares are of the nature of
Exactly.
Mars, right? It's like the friction and the tension that we need to make things happen. Like I think of diamonds are born through so much pressure. Yeah, squares can be hard and action oriented. And it's like if I see someone like if you came to me and you're like, ah, I feel like my love life is cursed with a Venus Saturn square, right? It's like your love life will probably always have the nature of Venus and Saturn. So let's talk about like
Yeah.
how that can show up. How can you work constructively with it? How can you um, you know, I don't, yeah, like how do you make it work? Like I'm Well, I'm just thinking of your chart right now, and then my brain went
That's
like in a different mode. But coming back to this, my Gemini mind is woo. Hi, my cat is coming over. But yeah, I think that we need outlets for different ways to work with whatever challenges that are there. And I think that sometimes it feels like our life is repeating patterns. And I like what you said about the spiral, right? It's like yeah, a similar archetype or similar maybe feel or patterning. However, it is a different circumstance. Like I think about I'm a Scorpio moon, and so my comfort is like cozy mysteries. And like I laugh at the concept of cozy mysteries because I'm like, imagine living in like a safe small town and every week you're solving a murder for some reason. Um, but it's like a different story each time, but there's like the same archetypes that come through
Mhm.
that you like kind of navigate, right? Like I have Saturn in my seventh, and it's like a level of, you could say, emotional distance or emotional um, coldness might be a part of my relationships throughout my life. And at the same time, knowing that, it's like, how do we create warmth together? And how do we proactively work to make sure that 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 coldness isn't, detrimental to a
Mhm.
relationship, right? And it's like, well, I'm also really attracted to Saturnian people. My husband is a Saturnian person.
Yeah.
And so I knowing that I'm married to someone with a Saturnian nature and knowing that I have Saturn in my seventh in the chart, like how do we yeah, remedy the excessively cold nature of Saturn so that we can, you know, create that connection and keep nurturing that connection between us. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, if you have like the benefics in your seventh house, it doesn't also just mean that you're immediately lucky in your relationship or anything. Like it's, I wouldn't say the fate of somebody having like Jupiter right in the ascendant is like, oh, immediately everything just falls into your lap, you know? So it's always about learning how to relate to the archetypes
Totally.
from different perspectives. And I really also love that you brought up remedies because I think like that's if your leg is broken or hurt, like you also go to a doctor to like try and fix it. And for me, that's really what like
Right.
planetary magic and astro magic is like. It's like, okay, I have this like difficult thing. Like, how can I remedy it? What is the prescription
Yeah.
for this? And that's also bringing your
Yes.
autonomy back to yourself. Like I was as a also very like malefic world person, I really had this like notion a few years back where I was like, oh, I just like need to raw dog my chart. Like I just need to stoically accept my fate and
Accept
fortune.
it.
Uh, and then I realized, like, you know what? Actually, maybe not fully, or not fully in the way that I thought I needed to. Like, I can definitely also incorporate things. And I mean, I've been working a lot with like talismans, but not like in a necklace, like no spheres and sundry. They have a lot of talismans in forms of let me just show some of them because I have them here. Like a tincture or
Yes.
or like a spray or something. There's like so many things. And in that way you can also you can go into relate like if you have and you can really do it and this is like straight up coming from my nursing field, right? But for example, if you treat someone homeopathically, you give them the other remedy to balance things out. So, like if you have a very strong Mars, or like if you're a very Marsy Saturnian person, you would probably go to remedies that are more Venusian or Jupiterian, and vice versa, right?
Yeah.
Everybody always wants the benefics, but I think a lot more people actually need Mars and Saturn in their lives than the benefics. Um, like to learn to also like hone the beauty of Saturn and of Mars.
Yeah.
So for example, that, or you can go the other way around, which I'm forgetting the name. Like it's another branch of homeopathy, or like the way that you can give someone prescriptions is to, like, for example, if somebody has a hay fever, you kind of give them even more of that so that it like goes into such an excess in your body so that it then like gets enough antibodies or something so that you stop being allergic, if I'm explaining this right now. I'm not sure. Um, but like that's kind of the other remedy I feel like that you could also do where, for example, I have my Mars in Capricorn in exaltation, which is like, yay, strong Mars. Uh, I also had to learn to be in relationship with Mars because for the longest time I was being the bitch of Mars, and if you're the bitch of Mars, it's like it's never fun. So you need to learn to wield Mars. And so I kind
Yeah.
of like went like straight into like that territory even more, like into the extreme of that even more to then like balance it out. If what I'm saying makes sense. Maybe that's just like me being a very Martian person. But I think that is kind of like, yeah, the gist of, well, what you really can do, like what your options are. Yeah. Is there anything else that's coming to your mind in
Yeah.
regards to that?
I think of like that talismans work a lot through attunement.
Mm.
It's like you're attuned to. Oop, my cat is exploring the windowsill and is discovering things that you can't walk through the wall. Anyways, um, I think of like attunement, right? It's like you're naturally attuned to whatever your birth chart is, and
Hmm.
talismans or materia, different practices can help you attune to, like if you are excessively Mars, maybe leaning into some attuning to Venus to kind of remedy those pieces. But just this practice of, um, I'm sorry, I'm a new cat mom, and so I'm like, I am attuned to this cat at the moment. But it's like, yeah, what you're honing in on, what you're cultivating in your life. You don't always have to go through materia, though I do love a materia I have here. What do I have? I have Quicksilver tongue. Something fell off my window. Anyways, sorry. Sorry for the Gemini chaos. But
It's only allowed because Uranus in Gemini is sextile Neptune and Aries today.
I know
We're
with
we're in
Mercury
the
retrograde.
archetypal field right now.
We're embodying this. But yeah,
We're
through attunement, you can embody different energies, right? And bring them forth. And that can also change your experience of things. Like I think of what I was saying earlier of like when you pray, sometimes your prayers change you and that helps change your
Mhm.
circumstance. I think practices of attunement or, honing and cultivating different energies can support you in a similar way as well. Hmm.
Yeah. Which, by the
Yeah.
way, guys, is a Saturnian practice. So
Yes,
just saying
yes,
it,
yes.
there's no, I mean, I often say this, but this channel, we don't accept Saturn hate.
No, 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 no.
Saturn is good for so many things.
Cats are
Eh,
Saturnian. Getting cats as Saturn remediation.
yes. I actually want to bring it back to electional astrology now.
Yes.
Because that is, well, actually, I think you should explain it because you do that more often than I do, and I think this also goes um into, well, it's a whole branch of astrology, really. Actually,
Yes.
it's also called like a horary astrology. So yeah, maybe briefly explain for the audience if they're new to this what this even
Yeah.
is.
So, electional astrology is the practice of choosing a moment in time to begin a venture or begin a project or take some sort of action that you want to set yourself up for success. And this is usually an auspicious moment. That's like the general and like most popular description of electional astrology. You can also use it. I know that Yoko Ono used things where she didn't want to go anywhere during a void moon. So you can actually use it to also not bring success when you don't want that as well.
Yeah.
But it's basically using the moments that you have to cultivate better, more fruitful outcomes for yourself. And then in tandem with that, horary is if someone asks an astrologer some sort of question, the astrologer pulls up that chart of the moment and that answer is found there. It's kind of similar to a tarot reading where it's like, I've got a
Yeah.
question, let me just quickly divine. Horary gives you that. And so both electional, because horary was born out through electional, I think, through the practice of pulling up the consultation charts of when people would come see an astrologer. And then through there you can see the motives of the client, the et cetera, et cetera. Wanting to understand them deeper. And especially if you don't know your birth chart for many reasons or your birth time, practices like electional and horary can be really, really illuminating, particularly horary. Anyway, so electional is a very technical branch of astrology because,
Yeah.
you have to consider the condition of the moon. What aspects is she making? What sign is she in? What are the other planets doing? Who is rising at the moment? What is the ascendant lord doing? What's the primary significator of the action I'm taking, right? Like if you're getting married, you want Venus to be doing as well as possible. And the challenge there becomes then the planets are where they are, right? Like
Hmm.
I can't, if someone's getting married, I can't like I was doing some electionals for September and October. They're like, I'm getting married September, October 2026. And I was like, wow, Venus is in Scorpio, and then Venus goes retrograde. And I was able to finesse the moments of time to make it work to find the right chart for that person, because it's not always about finding the perfect chart. It's about finding the least bad chart and the most supportive. And also, like, I like to root it to the natal chart, right? What chart makes sense for someone doesn't make sense for another person.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm going on a full rant about electional, but a lot of people, especially since I started teaching electional astrology, have been expressing like anxiety about like I feel like I'm not finding the right moment. And that's like that can be an anxiety moment of themselves. Or I really want to start this thing, but I keep stopping myself because I can't find the right electional chart. Or if there's like a moment like a Jupiter-Venus conjunction, where the planets that are the benefics are already together, they're working together to bring more goodness. And it's like, the pressure to like make something of this. Otherwise, like I'm failing, I'm not doing this well. So those are some of the anxiety pieces that I hear through the threads of electional astrology. And here's where I'm like really like influenced by Buddhism as well as like Stoicism of this like radical acceptance. I posted this on Twitter where like there no one else is really, I just go to Twitter to scream into the void. But I recently posted something like electional astrology gives me peace to know like if a moment is for me, like I will know, right? I will know to engage in it. It will happen. There are oftentimes that things just elect themselves, right? Or like yesterday night, I just looked at the chart of the moment and Moon was in Leo applying to Jupiter. And I was like, let me post a cute pic of myself, right? Where it just kind of was like an inspired thing in the moment. Um, but I think that um yeah, I feel like a lot of people get limited by electional astrology, whereas I feel like there can be a lot of playfulness and a lot of what's the best I can do with what I have, right?
Hmm.
Like someone was on Threads asking about taking a road trip on an eclipse, and I gave them some of my insight, but I was also thinking about, one time me and my husband had to take a road trip. It was the Virgo eclipse weekend. And all I did was instead of leaving at Aries rising, I stalled for a few minutes and we left at Taurus rising. And it ended up being a beautiful, wonderful trip. Like we got a free hotel upgrade and all these like little things happened that were just like, oh my gosh, wow. Very Venusian experience. And I didn't stop myself from taking that trip just because it was an eclipse, right? Yeah, so that's kind of like my rant and my intro into it. I'm curious what comes up for you and if you have any specific questions.
Well, I don't do a lot of electional astrology. I will say that. That's not my forte. I deeply respect people that do. I have, I think from my own natal combinations in my chart, I just have a lot of faith that I'll be exactly where I need to be. And for me, it's more fun to just look at things from the momentary perspective, which,
Yeah.
by the way, I don't, with that statement, I'm not saying that electional astrology is like dumb to do it or anything like that. I think it's very useful. And, I think also even for, yeah, for these bigger life decisions, it's like very well to consult these things. I also think if you're like a bit more fluent in the language of the stars, you kind of like easier just like kind of tap into it. But I have
Totally.
found a lot of also, people that are just intuitive or maybe more spiritually inclined and they don't know astrology often also just kind of intuitively just feeling or doing something at a time where I'm like, oh, that's a great election. So I do think
Yes.
it's also a bit of an internal compass, and you kind of talked about that before, right? Where it just there are moments where you just kind of really know that you should do something or you should not do something, or that something is beginning or that something is ending. And I also just honestly like a bit of chaos magic, to be completely honest, with not that I'm like head on doing all the no-nos during the retrogrades and everything, but I have found that by letting go of these things, the stories just end up unfolding as they need to, and they become part of it. Again, they describe the circumstance that I'm just living through. For example, a few years back, it was Mercury retrograde. I signed a contract for a new workplace, which is like a big no-no, right? Like, don't sign contracts during Mercury retrograde. And it was true, yeah. Like a few weeks later, due to circumstances, I then like left the place. It was a very quick thing. And yet, still, that experience was very important to have in my life, and I wouldn't have had it if I just was like, no, let me not sign anything then. So, yes. And I think you also pointed out a very good thing that for everyone's chart, things will be very different. There's many people that have natal Venus retrogrades do amazing in Venus retrograde periods, and a lot of life-changing events happen for them exactly during these times, and not
Yeah.
just bad ones. There's I think when the Venus retrograde in Leo was in the summer of 2023, which is also a very memorable time for me, that rhymed, but was, I think, right, like the Barbie movie was published, and the director, Greta Gerwig, like she has her natal Venus in retrograde, and that movie was like published, like I think right when Venus stations retrograde or
Yeah.
something. And that was like, I mean, she made a lot of money from that. Like it was a huge success. It was very visible. It was none of some of the other things that people would maybe associate being a Venus retrograde. So
Totally.
it really, really, really depends on your chart. And there's many people that also actually, when they have it natally, end up getting married during these periods. So it's not exactly, it's not like a time where you should not get married under any circumstances. Yeah, it's really individual and how it should be
Yeah.
applied to
Yeah,
everyone.
there's like those general rules,
Mhm.
and like, especially if I'm doing it but like, for example, a friend was getting married and she literally had like a 2 week window and Venus was retrograde, Mercury was retrograde. And she was like, I know that these are retrogrades, but just help me find the best moment here. And I was like, I got you, right? Because for whatever reason, that was the time period she was getting married, right? And so for me, and as my role as like, I mean, I wasn't this was just for a friend, right? So I just kind of casually looked through the
Yeah.
charts and found a good day where the moon was doing really nice things, and I put Venus in a as good of a position as I could in the moment that she got married. And it's great. Like, and it's like who knows where their story will take them. Hopefully a long, long, happy life together. And that was their story. I think what you mentioned about astrology being descriptive, I think that becomes even louder with electional astrology, right? Sometimes I'm like, this is technically not the best chart, but it's really descriptive of what I'm doing. It is
Yeah.
really makes sense for this. So you know what? This was my confirmation that I'm going to do this, right? Like I've elected one breakup and it's like a breakup chart is not going to look good for
Yeah.
as in a lot of ways, but it was like how do you want this breakup to go? Okay, you want it to be a clean breakup, you want it to be amicable, and you don't want there to be any reruns. Okay, cool. Let's not do a Mercury retrograde then, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're using our intention to take those actions with the use of like what time is it on the clock right now, and checking in and being like, is it a good time for this? And sometimes you gotta fuck around and find out, right? Like maybe use
Yeah.
a bad election or a mid-election, see how it goes. And like during the Venus Jupiter conjunction, there were a lot of Libra rising charts that were really good. And through that, one of my friends learned, damn, Libra rising charts do not work for me. And it was
Mhm.
like, that is very good data. Clock that,
Yeah.
and that's something for you. For me, I'm a Libra rising. Libra rising charts generally work great for me as long as Venus is doing well. And so um, that is really important data for me. Like I work with some clients on retainer or like they come back to me again and again. And as we collect more data, like that's specific to them, I can curate those charts even better for them, rather than the general like election of the month, generally
Yes.
auspicious moment.
Yeah.
Um, and I also think what you said about there are moments where we just know it's time to take action. And I think regardless of what the chart of the moment is, when someone has that aliveness and that like creative sacral energy kind of infused into whatever action they're taking or the work that they're doing, that is felt, right? Like for example, the Barbie movie, like, and that was astrologically, a Venus retrograde reoccurrence transit for her, the director. So that's great. But that movie was alive. That movie, like, felt really fun. It made a cultural impact, and so people were really with it. Um, and I think that that is something that's really felt and powerful, especially with creative things, with something that's full of passion and life. And I think that's really powerful. There's also this story, I need to find where I originally read it. It was years ago, but it was about this guru in like ancient India, and he would like travel around and do his little sermons, do his little
Mhm.
guru thing, and he would go to an astrologer and ask them for the best chart, and then he'd be like, what's a moment I shouldn't
Oh,
take
yeah, yeah,
action?
yeah. Oh, I
And
know.
he
Yeah.
would then take that action during the worst fucking chart. And then he would have a decent result. He would have a good result. And so he would be like, by the power of God, I don't have to limit myself with astrology. Um, and so yeah, I think there's so many different ways to relate to time and to work with it. I'm personally not going to go do the thing during the worst chart, maybe for science sometimes, but like that is a really comforting story to me because I think we can use astrology to limit to I don't love using astrology to limit our lives, in ways that don't feel good. I think, having certain guardrails or taking certain precautions, helping us make better decisions, yes, all of that. But it's like sometimes you just need to do the thing, right? Like that job you took, where it was Mercury retrograde and you had that experience for a few weeks. Like you were meant to have that, even if that
Yeah.
wasn't meant to last, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's also just this idea of just because something doesn't last doesn't mean it's not important for your life.
That
And
part.
there's so many, as you said, again, it really depends on the chart of the person. I- If you have like maybe you're a Saturn person, so you're gonna want to look at incredible Saturn elections, and it's not necessarily going to
Yeah.
be like Venusian or Jupiterian elections that you want to specifically focus on, consider on. It's like the same thing also with
Yeah.
astrocartography and like moving to different places. It's like maybe it's incredibly good if you do actually move to your Saturn line because you have a specific configuration that is extremely helpful, and you might even like have
Yeah.
an amazing life there and whatever. And it's like maybe not the best if you move to your Venus line because that's extremely challenging. So I think it's just a fault of again a lot of clickbait, I would say TikTok type of astrology that is just very, yeah, limited. And trying to limit something that is just extremely deep and intricate into something that is just like overly simplified, and you can't really oversimplify astrology. We tried it many
No.
times. We we tried it with sun signs, but it's there's just so much to it. It's like a very, very elaborate, and there is a lot of things you need to consider, which I think it like that even like consider comes from con with and sidere, the stars. So you have to sit with the
Mm,
stars. You consider with the stars, and you don't
period.
just, that's just not like a, oh, don't move to your Saturn line. Then you're not considering, you're not sitting with the stars. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I love that. And it's like Saturn's in Aries. Like, should the Saturnians just do nothing for the next 2 years? Like, no,
exactly.
obviously not, right? It's like it's a specific time for Saturnian things. It's the Saturn and Aries time. It's the burn shit down. It's the create things from new, do things before you're ready time. Um, Maybe see what's low to the ground, right? And build your way up. What I think of that when I come to sort of fallen planets, I'm like, just get low to the ground. See where you can go from there. Um, yeah. Yeah, it's like I have a question for you. Do you feel
Sure.
like there's a way to like what is my question? You kind of touched on it with like the like taking this very intricate practice and trying to distill it on social media or on any type of media that other people can easily access. Do you feel like there's a way to do that that still keeps the depth of it?
Well, I think many of us attempt to do that,
Yeah,
or we
definitely.
try to do that. I try to do a bit of a mix of incorporating a bit of the like clickbait, but not making it so like, I don't know, low vibe is the word that's coming to my mind. Like, I don't even
Yeah,
like that word, but just in the way that it's gonna be enticing, and it wants like people want to click on it, even maybe newer viewers, or even exactly these people that maybe potentially
right.
watch that content, so I can kind of like grab them and, and be like, hey, look, there's more to it. Because that's kind of like the intention if I do that. And the rest is, yeah, I think it's a bit tricky because even on an Instagram post, you have an idea and there's only so much that you can write in like a carousel post or on a story where it's going to be like good enough for people to actually like read through that and not be like, oh, that's just too much. Like, I don't like. um,
Yeah.
so yeah, the good
It's
old
a
finding
tricky
the balance.
balance,
Yeah, but it is a
right?
tricky balance. And at the
I
same
think it's
time,
mhm.
yeah, at the same time, I think it's also like I also came from astrology memes.
Yes.
So, and
It's a
that
gateway
was,
drug.
yeah, it was a gateway drug. So it's like one part of me also can't fully be mad because I'm like, okay, that's also like
Yeah.
how I stumbled on it. Not fully, there was like a backstory, but it was definitely something that made me eventually then like really go study astrology because it wasn't enough. Because eventually I was like, there's more to it, and this is like way too superficial. I need to
Yeah.
go study somewhere real. So yeah, that's kind of the way.
Yeah, I think it is easier in long form content, like something like this, or
Yeah.
I think about like the astrology podcast or Threads of Fate, where you can take time to unpack the nuances. I've been trying to post more like TikToks and Reels, and it's so hard to like
Yeah, I know,
encapsulate
right?
everything into a 3 minute video, right? And carousel posts I gave up on a long time ago because I was like, I can't do it on a carousel post. It's not my medium. But it is like the balance between like being friendly or like some content is meant to be friendly for beginners or like
Yeah.
just funny. Like I still love astrology memes, right? Because I know the function that
Yeah.
they play in the
Yeah.
context of like the greater astrology media. And then you go to like a podcast episode or a lecture or a book to go more in depth and to unpack the nuances and the layers and um, the depth of the tradition. Yeah, I think that a lot of the anxiety, like I think of like a story someone told me of like how an astrologer predicted a lot of good things for them, and then in that time period they were actually struggling so much, and then just having even that prediction in the back of their mind was making that period even heavier for them.
Mm.
And it's like there's a lot of responsibility, I think, on like consulting astrologers, even astrologers. Like, I think, oh man, I need to find who said this. But recently someone was like, being an astrologer is a big responsibility because whether you think of this or not, people are utilizing what you say to um, impact their life, right?
Yeah.
To make decisions about their life. And that is so real. And I think astrology is very mercurial in a lot of ways, but it's also very Saturnian. And there's like a responsibility and a depth that comes with um, carrying on this practice, and this lineage.
Agreed. Oh, it almost makes me want to read. Maybe I should read it. I think it is a quote from Various Valence that like Chris Brennan put on on the front somewhere in the book. Don't know if everybody will be able to relate to it. Like this is, I think, really specifically for people that want to go deep in astrology, which I do think is going to be people that actually watch this.
Yes.
But he says, those who engage in the prediction of the future and the truth, having acquired a soul that is free and not enslaved, do not think highly of fortune and do not devote themselves to hope. Nor are they afraid of death, but instead they live their lives undaunted by disturbance, by training their souls to be confident, and neither rejoice excessively in the case of good, nor become depressed in the case of bad, but instead are content with whatever is present. Those who do not desire the impossible are capable of being that which is preordained through their own self-mastery, and being estranged from all pleasure or praise, they become established as soldiers of fate.
That's so tea. I do love that quote. Basically, if you have anxiety, go read Stoic philosophy and Sikhism.
Read Chris's book.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because it is true. We're gonna all die one day. Everyone we love is gonna die. This is my Scorpio moon and Saturn, angular
Yeah.
Saturn being like, "Ugh, well, and so we just have to live life while we're here
Yeah, at the end
and
we
the
have to
ups
live
and
it. In the end we have to live it. Um,
yeah.
so live it as best as you can. Like go through these moments of fate and fortune. Like let them move through you. Because I think the worst thing you can do with all of this is like actually not letting it move through you when you're just like kind of closing yourself up from that and closing yourself up from pain or whatever or pleasure really. I mean, it's like oftentimes we also just close ourselves up from pleasure when we close ourselves up. But it will also prevent you from actually healing it, from actually like going through it, from alchemizing it. I think that's like the perfect
Mm,
word is what you're performing really at the end of the day is an alchemy, a co-creation with life. And
yeah,
there needs to be a process of detachment, and kind of as Valen says, of just except, I think of the quote, this too shall pass. Like I think that's like really the essence of astrology because everything is always constantly moving. And this too shall pass, as much the pleasant moment and the unpleasant moment. And it's about
yeah.
how present can you be with this experience? Because for me, that means living a full life, like experiencing each season that life throws at me, or the archetypal field, like, take a shot every time I said archetypal field in this video, but like opens for me to like actually like really go into that experience, because that for me is a full life. And again, maybe it's my like super Martian philosophy, but I wouldn't want to have it any other way. That's how I want to live my life. That's how I know that, again, if I'm on my deathbed, I'm gonna regret much more not doing the things and actually going through the things. So these are my concluding words for this, I guess.
Love that. Period. Yeah, I think of like the Buddhist philosophy, like every inhale has an exhale. And I think I've heard Kira Ryberg expand on this and say like every sunrise has a sunset, every up has a down. Um, yeah, there's a rhythm to life, and this too shall pass. Period.
Period, for real. Is there anything else that is coming up for you where you feel like, oh, I want to put
I
that
feel
inside?
I feel complete. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
no,
think
me
that
too. Me too.
I think we said it, we laid it all out, and I hope if you're listening that some of your anxiety has been quelled.
Yeah, for sure. I hope we didn't give more anxiety. I think actually what gives anxiety is usually when you just like overload yourself with information. And I think I'm really not on TikTok, but I know people that are. And once maybe you have like a lot of eighth house placements and then the algorithm shows you all these things that these people say about eighth house placement, about how, I don't know, you're gonna have a spouse and he's gonna die immediately, or you're gonna have a horrible inheritance, and then you go down that rabbit hole and it's just like information, and there's no integration happening. That's like where the anxiety comes from, really.
Take
So
time to integrate. Take
yeah.
time to like put the information down. I remember when Mars went retrograde in Gemini, my ninth house, I logged off of Instagram. I put things down. I stopped putting the pressure to do so much astrology and study it all the time. You know what I did? I learned how to do makeup. I learned how to like do a bunch of other random things. And then I came back to astrology and just felt so fortified in my practice. And
Yeah.
like in that time period, in between, I was able to integrate a lot of thoughts, right? It was like I would be doing something else and be like, oh, this thought about this thing in astrology. Let me write that down. Let me journal on that. And that helped me hear my own voice, and be like, wow, there is so much I already know with the information I've studied. And that gave me a different point of view as I came back and delved into Ancient Astrology Volume 1 and 2 by Dimitri George.
Yes, yes. Another great book.
Great,
Another great
fabulous.
book. Like, read it, gain the knowledge, but then go live it and integrate it. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, like that's literally the number one cause, I would say, for anxiety, because you just get into analysis paralysis then, and that's not a cool place to end up with. Definitely been there a few times, and it's not a cool place to be.
No.
So yeah. Um, well, to wrap this up, um, what are your offerings? Where can people find you if they want to
Yes.
find you? And yeah, if they want to talk about this more, if they need elections.
Yes, if y'all need elections, hit me up. So my social media on Threads and Instagram is astrology dot with dot Neha. And I post about my offerings pretty frequently there. My books for readings, for like natal charts, timing readings, other readings that I have, should be available at the link in my bio. My website's still under construction, so when that comes out, I will let y'all know. And I also have electional reports available, and we're recording this July 2026, and in on August 6th, 2026, I am hosting a workshop. It's called Clocking in Electional Astrology for Business. So if you want to understand how to set yourself up for success with the language of the stars, understand the techniques, and both how to like plan for things and also if you want to do something spontaneously. There's room for both of that in my lecture. So yeah, and I have a few other lectures available. You can just check the link for all the things.
Yes, it's gonna be down below. So you can easily find Neha and yes, I wish I could say something different about my website, but it's also under construction.
It takes time.
It's just a waiting game. Because I'm like not really doing it by myself. So yeah, my website is also under construction, guys, but I am totally like on YouTube, and these podcast episodes do also get released on Spotify. So maybe you're listening to this on Spotify, then you can check out the latter. There's a lot more content on YouTube because there's weekly overviews and archetypal deep dives. That's what I really like to do. And on Instagram, I usually do the same thing, just in a written format, not in a not in a talkative format. So you can kind of have it also broken down a bit, and like it's easy to save a carousel post, I feel like. So,
Totally.
and that is all under Resonance Astrology, where you can find me. This is, yeah, I'm actually not sure exactly when this will be published, but I do think it should be like around eclipse season because that's usually a season also known for inducing a lot of
Oh
anxiety.
yeah,
So I do
totally.
wanna, yeah, I probably am gonna
That's
release it.
when fate takes the wheel.
Yeah, that is when fate takes the wheel and it's about surrender. But yeah. Anyhow, to not to not like prolong this ending, yes, I'm gonna say bye to everyone and thanks for listening. If you found this useful, make sure to leave a thumbs up and share your thoughts and comments with us down
Yes, I'm
below
intrigued.
or on Instagram or over mail, however you find us. And yeah, thanks for joining me. And I wish everyone a lovely time ahead.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.